What's good, everybody? All right, our boy Mark Davis hit us with an absolute curveball. He announced yesterday that Tom Telesco is going to be the next general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I didn't expect that name to drop. And so before I jumped on here, I know a lot of content creators jumped on, hit everybody with their opinions, their feedback, but I wanted to do a little more research. I wanted to kind of sit on this for a second because I didn't expect Tom Telesco's name to be announced. And I wanted to get a better understanding of who Tom Telesco is. I wanted to get an understanding of what his relationship was like with the Chargers, with that front office, and how it affected his ability to do maybe what he wanted to do. And so I want to get you guys' feedback on this. And so before I get into it, if you could please like, subscribe, turn on those notifications. I would definitely appreciate it. I appreciate all the support you guys have given to me thus far. So thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you to all you that are viewing right now. I appreciate all the support. And so I want to break down why I think Mark made this decision. There was a report that came out that gives us a little insight as to why he made this decision. And then I want to go through the pros and cons. After doing some research, my pros and cons have changed a lot. And so I want to get you guys' feedback on what my take is on Tom Telesco. And so there was a report that came out just a few days ago by Tashawn Reed at the Athletic. And it basically states that Mark Davis did not want an inexperienced head coach and inexperienced GM this time around. And if you remember back in the day when Mark Davis took over this team in 2011, that's what he did. He brought in Reggie McKenzie, which never held a GM position before, and Reggie McKenzie hired on Dennis Allen, which was never a head coach. And when he was hired, he's one of the youngest head coaches in the league at the time. And so one of the things that I stated in one of my previous videos is that I wanted Mark Davis to do his due diligence. I wanted him to do his homework, and it seemed like he was. He was bringing in quite a few names, interviewing for the potential GM position. And I wanted him to take his time. I wanted him to do his research. And it really seemed like, based on this decision, he's trying not to make the same mistakes he made in the past. And I appreciate that. I appreciate him at least trying to learn from his mistakes. And so we have an inexperienced head coach with Antonio Pierce, and now he brought in an experienced GM, someone that has experience. And so he's trying not to repeat the same mistakes that he made in the past. And I appreciate that. So that's number one. And now let's kind of go into the pros and cons. Real quick, my pro is that whether you like Tom Telesco or think he did a good job with the Chargers, maybe your opinion will change after I'm done with this video. But he basically has 11 years experience as the general manager with the Chargers. So he, out of everybody that was interviewed, he's the one that has the most experience. So in my opinion, that's a pro. Now, the one thing that Tom Telesco is absolutely good at is he knows how to identify talent. He understands how to identify impact players. Now, that is very different on the ability to develop a roster. There's a difference there, and I'll kind of go into detail a little bit later. But he understands how to identify impact players. He's great. He has a great track record. If you look at his draft classes in the first, second, and third round, he hits the majority of his first, second, and third round players. And so that's definitely a pro. You look at names like Justin Herbert, Derwin James, Rashawn Slater, Denzel Perryman, Joey Bosa, Asante Samuel Jr. I mean, the list goes on. He hits in those early rounds. And so that's definitely a pro. And now one thing to look at is whether it be through the draft or through free agency, 4 out of the 5 starting offensive linemen last year for the Chargers were basically brought through the draft. And so it just goes to show he does have a very good draft record. He knows how to identify impact players through the draft. And he understands, he brought in a guy like Austin Eckler as an undrafted free agent. So he's got a good eye for impact players. Now, other pro, and I think it's a pro, is he seems to be pretty aggressive through free agency. Whether it works out or not, that's a different story, but he seems to be pretty aggressive. Last year they brought in J.C. Jackson, which was one of the top corners on the free agent market, and he brought him in. He knew he was a piece to kind of battle that KC high-powered offense. We brought in Devontae Adams, so he brought in KC Jackson to kind of offset that. So he did a good job by addressing that. He obviously brought in Khalil Mack, and then back in the day, he brought in Casey Hayward through free agency. Casey Hayward did a great job with them with the Chargers. Casey Hayward obviously came over to the Raiders and did a great job with the year he was here. So I think he does a good job. He's aggressive through free agency. So that's definitely a pro. And then one of the pros in my mind is that he has no ties to Antonio Pierce. He's going to come in to this front office as the GM and make decisions and evaluate the situation with no bias whatsoever. He's not going to sway his decision because he's friends with Antonio Pierce or has ties to him. I think he's going to have a very open mind as to how he evaluates things moving forward. So I think that's a huge pro. Now, this isn't necessarily a pro for Tom Telesco, but the reports are out that I think we're going to retain Champ Kelly as it stands now. He's still under contract, so Champ Kelly will remain the assistant general manager. And I think that's a pro. I like the fact that Champ Kelly, as it stands right now, will still be a part of this front office. Now, my list of cons. Now, let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree with my pros and cons? Let me know, or my pros. If you have more, or if you disagree, let me know in the comments down below. I definitely enjoy the feedback that I get from all you guys. Now, before I get into my cons, I had a pretty long list of cons, but as I started doing my research and digesting who Tom Telesco is and who that Chargers front office is, the list of cons started to shrink a little bit. So before I get into it, let's take a look at the Chargers front office and who owns the Chargers, right? It's basically a family affair over there. You got Dean Spanos, which is the owner of the Chargers, and he's got his son, John Spanos, that is the president of football operations, and this is what his actual role is. He oversees all related functions of the team, including player personnel, coaching, player finance, and salary cap. So what that tells me is even though the Chargers were in really cap hell, their cap situation is not good over with the Chargers. They're going to have to offload some big names because they got to square away that cap situation. There's a chance, I don't know this for a fact, but there's a chance that was the fault of John Spanos, not necessarily of Tom Telesco. So that's one good thing to pay attention to. Now, in addition to that, we have a guy in our own front office, which is Tom Delaney. Tom Delaney is the director of football administrations. He's been with the Raiders for 24 years, and in the last 5 years, he's been responsible for negotiating player contracts and managing the salary cap. So as we kind of move forward with Tom Telesco, I'm going to pay attention to Tom Delaney. He's been with us for 24 years. I want to make sure that he stays with the Raiders and he continues in that role. Now, with Tom Telesco coming in, he's the new general manager. He might make some changes to this front office. I don't know how much control he'll have with that based on his conversations with Mark Davis, but Tom Delaney is one name I want to pay attention to because if he stays with us and he stays in his current role, there's a good chance that he is going to control the cap situation and not get us in a situation that was possibly with the Chargers. Again, don't know if Tom Telesco was fully responsible for that, but Tom Delaney I want to pay attention to. So with that being said, let's get into the cons. He does have a horrible track record of evaluating coaches. The coaches he brought in did not have success. Now, it's good that we have AP. AP is already locked in. That's good. But we also have a whole offensive side of the football that we need to still hire on. We have offensive coaches that we just offloaded, so we need to bring new offensive coaches in. And I know in some organizations, the general manager has some say and some oversight as to who those coaches are being brought in. And so how much input or how much control Tom Telesco is going to have in who is brought in on the offensive side, I don't know how much that's going to be, but based on his past, he doesn't have a good track record of evaluating coaches. So I want to look out for that. Now, another con, in my opinion, especially based on what a lot of us want to see in this upcoming draft, Tom Telesco really doesn't move in drafts. He kind of sticks where he is. In the 11 years that he was the GM of the Chargers, he only moved twice in the first round. And so if you are one of those that want to jump up to get a quarterback, I'm not sure if that's going to happen based on Tom Telesco's history, he does not move a lot in those first rounds. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. Now, in the section when I started to name off the pros, I said that Tom Telesco does a great job of identifying impact players, but that's different than identifying or developing a good roster. The one thing that I think Tom Telesco struggles in is developing a full roster. Not only identifying impact players and starters, but he doesn't identify depth very well. That's why when the Chargers have suffered some injuries, they haven't been able to find the pieces that can come in and be that impact player or be that quick filler to kind of keep that momentum going. That's the one thing that I've seen. And being a Raider fan, I follow the Chargers to make sure I know what we're going up against. And the Chargers' depth really has struggled over the years. And so as much as a lot of people have come out and said he creates a great roster, I don't know if that's the case. He struggles with identifying depth and developing that depth, which that also contributes to his lack of identifying quality coaches. So that's definitely a con. And with that being said, he has shown struggles with identifying good players later in the draft. And so I want to look out for that. I want to see kind of how he does in this upcoming draft with us. But I think he has struggled a little bit with identifying impact players in the later rounds. So, guys, that's kind of my pros and cons. I want to digest this information a little bit. So I'm hitting you guys a little bit late with this video, but I think it was worth it. So let me know if you guys agree with my pros and cons. Give me your feedback. Let me know, are you stoked about Tom Telesco, or do you still have your concerns? Let me know in the comment section down below. All right, guys, I appreciate you. Please like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out.